I think every real horror fan has had at least one experience of feeling out of place when compared with quote-unquote mainstream society, but I don't think there's ever been a really good attempt to understand why it is that people like horror. That's what our podcast is about, interviewing people in the horror biz to find out what it is about horror that makes them happy. My name's Steve, I'm a bit of a psychology buff, and my co-host is my friend Chris, who's a bit of horror buff. And so far we've interviewed about 70 people in the biz and had a lot of fun with it, and want to share with you some of the highlights. In this set of excerpts, we're just going to share some of the fun stuff. If you want to hear some of the real meat of the conversations, come check us out on Apple, Google, Spotify, or you can just use the player on our website. In this set of excerpts, we're talking to authors Philip Fracassi, Cody Goodfellow, and Jonathan Janz.
I remember one time I was a little kid, and my brother, my oldest brother, dressed up as the Hulk. He painted his face and skin green and wore, a
oh no, has he not seen James Bond? Never paint your whole body.
Yeah, right. And I remember going downstairs, like I was all going to the kitchen to get a cookie or something, and my brother was in the kitchen in his Hulk thing, and he turned to me and he did the whole Hulk thing. He was like, "Rawr," like that. And I fucking pissed myself. I mean, not only did it terrify me, but it traumatized me. Like I would refuse to go out. I refused to leave my room. Another thing like that happened when and this just occurred to me, but I think around that same age, one of my brothers had a giant rubber hand that was like an alien, like a predator kind of hand with like the long fingers and the black nails and whatever. And I remember one time he opened my door and stuck this hand through the door. God. And I started scraping it against the door, and I screamed. Well, this is where you gotta be careful who you scare. I screamed as loud as I could, ran to the door, and kicked it shut as hard as I could.
No.
I saw that coming
right on his hand. Yeah. And I was like,
ow, I was joking.
And he screamed and all that stuff. And I was like, I didn't care. I was like shouldering into that door as hard. I mean, I was just a little kid. So no, Halloween was never like a really fun, positive thing for me. When I have a kid, I raised a kid who's 22 now, but I love doing Halloween with him as a parent. Like I said earlier, I think I'm a very driven guy, and it drives me, like, I don't like weekends because it's like, oh, I'm not going to hear from anybody this weekend because no one's working. Like, why isn't everybody working? I'm working. And, but that's a little bit of a different thing, but I, generally speaking, I don't, and I try real hard, man. Like, raising a kid, I like forced myself to get the Christmas tree. Like I forced myself. And because he'd be like, why don't we have decorations like at mom's house? I'm like, oh no, we're going to have decorations. And we're
going to do it.
Yeah. And luckily my wife she does that stuff now I don't have to worry about it. But it would be interesting to explore why, but I just don't like the whole, like, I guess the pretense of forced joy or captive, like you said, Chris, captive joy. I know Valentine's, they're all Hallmark holidays to me. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've just never cared. And so I sound like a total asshole, but that's just the way it is. First time I ever went to therapy, session number 1 of probably, 3,000 or whatever. But, and I remember the guy saying, I was explaining, I didn't want to get too personal, but I was explaining something where I felt I was in a situation that I felt very stuck in. And he goes, well, why don't you just get out of that situation? And I was like,
because it's that simple, just.
Right. Yeah. But I was like, oh, I can't do that. He's like, why? Why can't you? I'm like, because it would hurt people. And he's like, so it would help you, right? You're hurting now. And it was this weird like moment of like exaltation of being like, holy shit. Like,
I can hurt people.
It was right. Oh, yeah,
I'm allowed to, really.
It's like the cage door opening, right? It's like someone just.
I'm allowed to take care of myself.
Yeah, it's like someone opening that little latch on the cage door and swinging it open and being like, "There you go." And it's like, oh, I had no idea I could do that. I didn't even know that wasn't even an option. But yeah, trapped is probably the worst feeling, at least for me, you could feel in any situation, because that's really where you feel like, well, there's no hope. That's really where hopelessness comes in, is that like, it's, yes, I'm depressed, but I'm also trapped in this depression, and I don't think I'm ever going to get out of it. Therefore, why even bother continuing? So anyway, that was just, I just recalled that moment in early therapy where it really opened my eyes to like more possibilities. The only other time I cried reading a book was when I was a little kid, and I was reading Chronicles of Narnia, and there's a scene in the last book where all these horses are coming to like help with this battle that's going on, and the horses are all killed, or a lot of them are killed, and that traumatized me. I was very upset during that, reading that. I was like laying on my couch crying when I was like, whatever, 11 years old or whatever.
If you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend not reading the never ending story. There's a sad part in there.
I've heard about that one. I haven't read that. I haven't read that book or seen the movie, probably for that exact reason.
Apparently in the book, the horse has dialogue, and it makes it even sadder.
Oh, great.
All right.
Awesome.
The very next house had this big lawn party going, just a bunch of old folks in costumes and stuff sitting around enjoying drinks. And they said, go on up to the front door and ask the devil for your candy. and already I'm starting to wonder about this neighborhood. And we go to the door, and the door opens, and you know how your childhood imagination embellishes things.
Oh yeah, the door was like 16 feet tall, and it took 2 years to creak slowly open.
Yes. and behind the door, sitting on a throne in this black velvet suit and with curly goat horns, was the devil. I straight up wet my pants.
The important part, did you still get the candy?
Oh, well, I ran from the house, and like one of the old folks stopped me and was like calming me down, and my mom came up with the Reese's peanut butter cup that I had earned,
that you left behind.
Yeah,
I'm like, here you go, kid. You earned this.
And she asked me if I wanted to go to another house, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm done.
These two, we are good on spooks for tonight.
Right, and
If it's these two, then what's next?
And that was that was a definite quality over quantity Halloween, because I vividly remember sitting in the bathtub afterwards while eating my bottle caps and my Reese's peanut butter cup, which were the only things that I got. And they tasted like victory, because I had to claw those out of the heart of darkness. I had been in her class for about a month in third grade, and I complained about the quality of the reading books that we had in class, and she was like, well, what do you like? And I'm like, I like scary books. So she gave me The Shining. She gave me a
third and fourth grade.
Yeah, in third grade, she gave me a hardback edition of The Shining.
It's almost like she was calling your bluff, like, oh, you want scary, but
yes,
try this out.
No, she totally was, and by like many objective metrics,
she's like, come here, Danny.
Yeah, Nancy was probably a terrible teacher, because she was kind of motivated as much by this kind of piss and vinegar as anything else, and it was kind of a dare.
Any good teacher is motivated by piss and vinegar.
I think so. Otherwise they're not even.
Bad ones are too.
Otherwise they're clearly not looking at their own paychecks. But
it's kind of interesting that you were saying that you were seeking your peak experiences,
right?
But implicit in that, it seems that you define your peak experiences as being somehow exciting, not peaceful.
Yeah. That's a problem for a lot of people around me. Probably not so much for myself. But yeah. I mean, I think of a peak state as potentiality of being galvanized more than of being centered. And I'm 52. And so, obviously I have had to slow down and have tried to cultivate, places of peace. I mean, I'm
not making a judgment. It was just an observation.
Oh, no. But you are inciting me to think about something that I haven't really thought about. Well, when I was a kid watching like Friday the 13th and stuff, of course I was always rooting for Jason, because I hated teenagers. I was like 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. Those guys. trying to do gross stuff to each other in the bushes.
Older kids thinking they're better than me. A bunch of jerks. I hope they get stabbed through the eye with a lawn aerator.
That's what you get. That's what you get for giving me an Indian rug burn just because you had a hangover.
So when you say it's not always teenagers, what do you mean?
I mean, like Texas Chainsaw.
With body?
Oh no, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise.
Oh, okay.
They'll eat anybody. It's not. They don't just always contrive to put a bunch of young, attractive people into the meat grinder.
Got it.
We could do an episode of just tangents. Oops, all tangents.
That's kind of become my trademark. I was in a 3-minute short film called Quentin 58, and I yelled out so many non sequiturs just that ruined takes that they made a whole separate short film of my shouted non sequiturs.
Yes.
which I will email you momentarily.
Please do.
So yeah,
Chris will be looking for inspiration.
Hot damn! It's all going to be here, buddy.
Nice. Early start.
Yeah, early start, great start. My mom is the MVP there in that regard.
Yeah, definitely.
Was she involved in choosing to live next to a graveyard?
Right.
She was super young. She was 21, and it was like the only place we could afford. And I don't think that early part of my life or her life.
She just told you that so that she could live next to a graveyard.
That's right, yeah, exactly.
You have a choice. Cheapest fine.
Sorry.
It was all a front. Yeah. That kind of like worked out that way, but we made the best of it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're fans of horror, it's not having to make the best of it. It's already the best.
True. I've been a lifelong sufferer of vivid dreams and nightmares, but the one that you asked about, I am at an extreme height, like probably 300 yards above the earth. I'm on this spire, like some sort of really, really thin like tower, made of stone, and below me are just like pavers, and each paver is, for as far as the eye could see, they all have like numbers on them. And they're all very small. They're all probably like, 6 inches in diameter. And I have to leap from the tower and land on the exact correct one, or else all my family will die. And I somehow know this in my dream. And I've had that same recurring dream since I was like 3 or 4 years old. It's really specific and really weird.
Well, you'd mentioned your bio-dad potentially being scary. And I mean, this is sort of like a walking on eggshells kind of thing of, I have to be very careful here.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I mean, we were told when he was, my mom divorced him when I was like 4 or 5, but when he was home, the rule was we couldn't talk. Yeah, he just didn't, because as he told my mom, he didn't want to be reminded that he had a family.
Oh, wow.
Because I was still sleepwalking actively. Like, I remember my stepfather, with whom I didn't get along, I remember him like yelling at me one night because he woke up and I had mistaken him for the restroom, and I was getting ready to take a leak off.
You'd be surprised how common that is. I have a couple of friends who have actually done that.
Is that right? Yeah. I mean, and the only disappointing part is that I didn't. Looking back, I wish I would have. He really deserved to be micturated on. Total jerk, and I wish I would have, gone through with it. But he caught me before the stream was in mid-flow.
That would have been a perfect excuse too. What? I was sleepwalking.
I know. I should have used it, right? I should have just used that to do it, whenever I wanted.
The next night you do it again completely on purpose.
Exactly.
Still sleepwalking. As you're doing it talking, I am sleepwalking right now.
No control over it. Sorry. Right? I know that there are people who listen to this and roll their eyes and are like, "Oh, dude, that's so cringe." And you know what? And I'm like, honestly, to those people, you do you live your life how you want to, but I'm going to be excited about things. I'm going to feel things I'm going to get choked up on a daily basis, because I don't know. I think it's, emotions are good things to have, and like, feeling those with other people, that's a good thing to do.
I don't know if go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say not at all. Thank you for this, actually, because as someone who may or may not have recently intermittently lost sight of that thing they call hope. It's good to hear someone, describe it and kind of reintroduce the concept that is hope, in a visual and literary sense.
Yeah.
And in a way, you're right. Yeah, that look that Luke gave out onto the twin sunsets is hope.
So the short-term goal that we have with these episodes is obviously anybody who's interested in your work can come hear what we're talking about and get to know you a little bit better and the things that have informed your life and help them connect with you and enhance their fandom. But then the long-term goal is that however many people we get to talk to while we're doing this, the more people we talk to, maybe we can start identifying some common trends that inform the horror community as a whole. And we're not expecting everybody to fall into one bucket, but maybe that there might be a couple buckets that people fall into. And even though, like you say, okay, other people might hear this and go, okay, that's cringe. I think the common thread that, if you listen to a lot of the calls that we've done, there are people who are feeling this same excitement about the different things, which are the different buckets that they would fall into. And yeah, maybe your bucket isn't the same as the next person's, but it's the enjoyment part that's the important part. And I think anybody who, loses sight of that doesn't really understand what we're doing here.
Yeah. That's awesome, by the way. I love by the way, you two are awesome to talk to. I love the name of your podcast. I love that so much. It's just so it literally made me smile. Like when I was going to the, linking up with you all. But then also I love those short and long-term goals. I think that's marvelous. Yeah, it's so cool.
So yeah, come check us out over at horrormakeshappy.com or check out some of our other excerpts until you find someone whose interview you do want to hear.